I think the ultimate goal is to get the patient off the endpoint of the instability. I think that's the primary goal. And one of the things I mentioned was when we done traditional orthotics through foam impression, slipper casting, that technique or science, if you will, if you want to call it that, isn't really that defined. It's not that exact. And I think with the Phits system, that data and the information that is provided is much more exact and more scientific based, if you will, when it comes to producing a foot orthotic. Labor, time, and efficiency. The amount of people that you can see and produce the orthotic, the timeline and turnaround time that you can produce these in is a huge factor. When you look at the effort it takes to build a pair of orthotics versus the scan, it's not even close. I would say if you took the total time was about 4 hours, about a 30-minute evaluation roughly, some consultation to the patient, and then the rest of it's really time and labor building the product. And the Phits system, you don't even have to, it doesn't even come that close. So there's a huge savings in just time management alone, which, as we all know, time is money. I think one of the huge benefits that I have is I can literally take this out of the box and put it into the shoe, put it on the patient, and walk them. I don't have to go back and try to trim things down and put it into the shoe. I challenge the system and to see, can it take the most extreme cases and correct the problem? And I know one of the comments I had made initially is, we'll see how this really works. And so, pushing the extreme cases and finding good results and good solutions was the selling point. And like I said, when we took these extreme cases and finding out that the bottom line was the patient outcomes were excellent, well, I think it's the future. If you look at the medical arena, 3D printing is the future. I think in all aspects, not just in foot orthotics, but in prosthetics. And you name something, it's probably being done. Well, I think you're taking something in terms of stiffness direction. In comparison to any orthotic out there, you can't achieve that. You can't achieve stiffness direction in a linear piece of material. And to me alone, that is a huge benefit compared to any other product on the market. When you can change the direction of the material in a form or fashion and then also manipulate its flexibility, those are two huge factors in how the foot can be manipulated. I've never come across in 20 years a product that's ever done that. I think that's a tough question, to be honest with you, I really do. Because I think it comes down to a individual level. As a whole, I think it's, if there's acceptance into doing it, and when people really see the value of what dynamic scanning does and 3D printing does, then I think in the long run it's going to be it's going to turn the profession on its ear technically, in my opinion. Biomechanical efficiency, I think, is the biggest outcome. I think when you're using the Phits system, you're just a little bit more defined of correcting. The correction is a little more defined. The ultimate result of that is really a better product. And so I think that transitions to comfort and compliance with the patient. I take them from start to finish. I take them from the static to the complete design from front, the beginning to the end. So I'll actually explain what's actually happening in the process of what's happening biomechanically with their foot and what we're trying to do to correct the problem. So the patient has a knowledge base of what the problem is and what we're trying to solve. I think most people are visual learners, or sometimes even hands-on. So when they can see what's happening, they have a better understanding of the process and what we're trying to accomplish versus, any other technique that might have been done in the past. There are a ton of scanners on the market, and I think the one thing that we need to define is this system compared to any other system. The key word is dynamic compared to anything else. And I think when we use the term dynamic, it separates the Phits system from everybody else. What we see visually with the naked eye and what we see through 3D motion analysis or scanning are completely different. The eyeball really technically can only process about 32 frames per second. And so it's very difficult to see mid-foot pressure, forefoot pressure with a naked eye. It's almost impossible. You can't do it. But what we see visually with our eye and what is technically happening can be a little misleading. So what the system allows us to do is really kind of pinpoint when things are happening in terms of timing and sequencing of when they're happening. Well, it's a significant instrument, one, because there's things that we do with the system that you can't do elsewhere. The feedback you get through the system, you won't get elsewhere. So that in itself is a huge benefit. I typically see some pretty extreme cases, probably the more uncommon. So I have a tendency to probably make corrections in the system than what most people would typically do. So I usually try to push the boundaries of the system to really see what its true potential is.